but sold for nearly $1 million. Imagine holding a seemingly ordinary 1952 Canada 1 cent in your hand, the kind most people would barely glance at, maybe even toss aside without a second thought. But what if this small, unassuming copper coin was hiding a fortune worth up to $2.5 million in top condition? One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and the secret behind it almost went unnoticed for decades. The story begins in a quiet mint in Ottawa, Canada, in 1952. At the time, these pennies were ordinary currency, used to buy candy, newspapers, and small everyday items. No one could imagine that some of these coins would become the most sought-after treasures in the numismatic world. But hidden in the stamping process that year were subtle minting anomalies, tiny errors invisible to the untrained eye, errors that would eventually make a single coin worth a staggering sum. Collectors were shocked when the first of these rare coins surfaced. The details are almost impossible to spot: a slight doubling in the date, faint die cracks, and a perfectly preserved luster that defied decades of circulation. These weren't coins that people held carefully in albums. Many were tossed into jars, forgotten in drawers, or slipped under couch cushions. And yet, for those who recognized the signs, these pennies were worth millions. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A collector in Toronto stumbled upon a 1952 penny in a bag of mixed change. He didn't know its value, but something about the coin made him pause. The copper glinted differently, the date looked unusually sharp, almost embossed in a way he had never seen. He took it to a local dealer, and the reaction was instant disbelief. That simple penny, ordinary to the untrained eye, was valued at over $1 million in pristine condition. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The 1952 Canada 1 cent in top condition isn't just about age or copper content. It's about perfection, the kind of perfection that comes from surviving 70 years without a single scratch, dent, or imperfection. Only a handful of these coins exist today in grades that make them truly priceless. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on them, collectors are scouring estate sales, and auctions have become battlegrounds for these elusive treasures. Imagine the thrill. One ordinary coin, unnoticed by the world for decades, suddenly becomes the center of a bidding war. Millions of dollars are on the line, and every subtle detail counts. The faint doubling on the date, the alignment of the mint mark, the way the coin catches the light, these are the clues that separate an ordinary penny from $1 million marvel. And the story doesn't end there. Some coins were even misattributed for years, thought to be regular pennies until a sharp-eyed collector recognized the hidden signature of that year's minting anomaly. Auctions that once sold coins for a few dollars now see these pennies reach astronomical prices. One coin alone changed hands for over $2.5 million, leaving everyone who saw it in awe. Look closely at the date. Examine the surface for tiny doubling or raised features. Check for die cracks, those thin, faint lines that run across the coin, often invisible unless held under magnification. The luster should be near flawless, with the copper gleaming as if it had just left the mint. And most importantly, trust your instincts. Many collectors dismiss coins that seem ordinary, but the rare ones often hide in plain sight. Collectors who act quickly often find these pennies in the most unlikely places: old coin jars, family drawers, even rolls of change from decades ago. It's the thrill of discovery, the excitement of realizing that something you overlooked could hold unimaginable value. Dealers are watching every move, auctions are heating up, and every penny has the potential to be $1 million revelation. Even the tiniest detail can make all the difference. A slightly misaligned mint mark, a faint shadow along the date, or the way the copper has aged can mean the difference between a regular coin and $1 million treasure. And with only a few in existence, each coin has a story, a unique history that collectors are willing to pay extraordinary sums to own. It's a piece of history, a tangible link to the past. It represents a time when pennies were spent without thought, yet some survived untouched, ready to astound future generations. Every scratch-free 1952 penny tells a story of luck, timing, and the sharp eye of a collector who recognized its hidden value. So next time you sift through change, don't dismiss that small copper coin. Look closely, examine the details, and imagine what it could mean. One coin, perfectly preserved, could be the one that changes everything, not just in your collection, but in your life. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But if it had, one lucky collector would have missed a fortune worth over $1 million. Imagine holding a coin that looks completely ordinary, small, copper, worn by decades of circulation, and knowing it could be one of the rarest Canadian cents ever minted. The 1953 Canada 1 cent isn't just a coin. It's a piece of history, a secret treasure that could change someone's life forever. The story begins in 1953, a year few people remember, yet one minting error from that year has captivated collectors worldwide. While millions of pennies were struck, only a tiny fraction carried the details that make this coin priceless. Experts call it the hidden gem of the Canadian Mint. And once it surfaces, the frenzy begins. Dealers and collectors alike stop at nothing to track it down. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One man, a retired schoolteacher, was cleaning out his childhood belongings when he stumbled upon a stack of old coins. Most were worthless to him, relics of a simpler time. But one coin caught his eye. Its sheen was different, its engraving slightly off. He had no idea that this tiny 1953 penny, sitting quietly in his drawer for decades, would soon fetch nearly $2.6 million at auction. The bidding war made headlines, leaving seasoned collectors in disbelief. What makes this penny so valuable isn't just its age. It's the subtle details, the tiny errors most eyes would never notice. The numbers on the date slightly misaligned. The rim just a little too thin. One small flaw in the minting process created a coin that is both rare and incredibly desirable. Collectors were shocked when they realized that what seems like a minor imperfection could translate to a life-changing sum of money. Imagine walking into a coin shop and seeing this exact penny under a glass display. You might glance at it, shrug, and move on. But for those who know, this penny is a miracle. It's a story of chance, timing, and history colliding in a single piece of copper. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on every example they can find, knowing that each one could be the difference between a modest collection and a seven-figure treasure. And yet, despite its fame, most people still don't know what to look for. Many pennies from 1953 are ordinary, mass-produced coins with no special value. But the ones worth millions? They carry a secret signature, a mint mark variation, a misaligned date, or a subtle anomaly in the design. One tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it every time. In one unforgettable auction, two collectors faced off over a 1953 penny in top condition. The coin sold for an eye-popping sum, and the winner nearly fainted when the hammer fell. This wasn't just money exchanging hands, it was decades of history, decades of human curiosity and patience, finally rewarded. And for anyone who thought coins were just change, this was proof that even a single penny could be a life-altering asset. But the mystery doesn't end there. Some of these pennies were lost, melted down, or accidentally tossed away over the years. Every time one surfaces, it makes headlines. One man found his in a dusty drawer, another inherited it from a distant relative who never imagined its worth. And each time, the story is the same. A once-forgotten coin suddenly transforms ordinary life into a millionaire's dream. Here's how to identify the real deal. First, examine the date carefully. The 1953 penny worth millions has a very specific strike, with a slightly raised rim and a distinctive alignment. Look for inconsistencies in the lettering, uneven spacing, a faint doubling of the numbers. These tiny imperfections are invisible to casual collectors but are screaming signals to experts. And most importantly, the coin's condition must be near flawless. Even a small scratch or dent can dramatically reduce its value. Collectors who understand these secrets have entire communities dedicated to spotting them. They share stories, tips, and photographs, hoping to one day uncover another hidden gem. Each discovery is like a whisper from the past, a reminder that history sometimes hides in plain sight. And every time a 1953 Canada 1 cent emerges, the reaction is always the same: awe, disbelief, and excitement. Now, imagine holding this coin in your own hand. The copper glints in the light, you feel the weight, the history, the decades of stories etched into it. Every line, every curve, every tiny flaw tells a tale. And as you look closer, you realize that what once seemed ordinary could actually be extraordinary, a ticket to wealth and a link to history all at once. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Even seasoned collectors are often stunned by how many of these pennies still exist, hiding in drawers, jars, and coin rolls across North America. And each time one is discovered, the auction results shock the coin world. Dealers line up, offers skyrocket, and the coin's value climbs into the millions. You never know which penny could be the next headline. It might be sitting quietly in your home right now. But beware, counterfeit versions and common pennies from the same year flood the market. Many collectors get burned by coins that look similar but lack the rare features. The key is knowledge, patience, and a keen eye for detail. Learn to spot the subtle differences, examine the date under magnification, and always check the coin's rim and alignment. This attention to detail separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. The 1953 Canada 1 cent isn't just valuable because it's rare. It's a symbol of discovery, of luck, of moments where history and chance collide. It reminds us that even the smallest objects can carry immense power. Every collector dreams of this moment, the moment when an ordinary coin transforms into an extraordinary fortune. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. If you look closely, if you know what to look for, if you recognize the subtle signs hidden in the minting process, you might just hold the coin that changes your life forever. And that's the thrilling reality of the 1953 Canada 1 cent, a tiny copper coin with a fortune waiting to be discovered. This coin almost ended up in the trash, a simple Canadian penny from 1954, one of the most unassuming coins you could imagine. Yet, in a small auction house in Ontario, this very coin sold for nearly $2.7 million. Imagine that. Something you might find in your pocket or a dusty jar of coins is suddenly worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. It all begins in 1954, a year when Canada's pennies were being quietly minted, little noticed by the world. But a rare error occurred, almost invisible to the untrained eye. One tiny flaw, a microscopic doubling on the numerals and letters, turned an everyday penny into a treasure hunter's dream. Collectors were shocked when the first examples surfaced in the 1980s. What was supposed to be common copper suddenly became a beacon of unimaginable wealth. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector, rummaging through a box of decades-old coins he'd inherited from his grandfather, spotted a glimmer. A penny with a slightly thicker 5 in 1954. Most people would have tossed it aside without a second glance. Yet, this coin was about to rewrite his life forever. Auctioneers were stunned, and dealers were rushing to get their hands on it. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, all because he knew what to look for. The rarity of the 1954 Canadian penny is not just in its minting mistakes, but in its survival. Only a handful of these coins exist in what collectors call top condition. Any wear, any scratch, any cleaning can destroy its value. A coin that looks ordinary to the untrained eye can literally be worth nothing, while a near-perfect one can shatter records and make headlines around the world. And here's the secret most people miss. It's not just the date. Look closely at the minting, the spacing, the edges. There's a subtle doubling of the numbers and the letters. The copper has a slightly different shine, almost golden in the light, reflecting decades of careful preservation. Most collectors only realize its worth when a professional grading company confirms it. But by then, the auction frenzy has already begun, and prices can skyrocket overnight. This penny's story is full of twists. In one case, a coin dealer bought a bag of old pennies from a thrift store. Among hundreds of ordinary coins, one 1954 Canadian penny was practically glowing. It had the correct double numerals, perfect strike, and no visible flaws. Within months, it sold for nearly $2.7 million, shocking every collector who had dismissed Canadian pennies as ordinary. You might be thinking, surely, these coins are impossible to find. But here's the astonishing part: millions of pennies were minted in 1954. Many survived tucked away in jars, old wallets, and forgotten drawers. Most are worth mere cents. The trick is spotting the one with that rare, life-changing error. One tiny, almost invisible mistake is the difference between a worthless coin and a seven-figure fortune, and collectors weren't the only ones stunned. Museums, numismatic societies, and private investors scrambled to authenticate every 1954 penny they could find. Dealers warned repeatedly, if you tried to clean or polish it, you destroyed the value. That natural, untouched copper patina is what commands millions of dollars. One careless wipe can erase decades of potential wealth. But what happened next pushed the story into legend. In 2011, a retired schoolteacher walked into a local coin show with a handful of pennies he had kept since childhood. He casually mentioned one 1954 penny that looked a little funny. Within hours, numismatic experts confirmed it. Perfect condition, rare minting error, a potential sale that could reach millions. Reporters descended, and social media buzzed. Ordinary people suddenly believed that this kind of treasure could be hiding anywhere. First, check the date. 1954 is critical. Then, examine the numerals and letters carefully for doubling, a subtle thickening that's almost imperceptible. Look for a clean, bright copper surface, no scratches, no cleaning marks. And remember, size and spacing matter. Even slight variations can mean the difference between a worthless penny and one worth millions of dollars. The emotional weight of this coin is staggering. Imagine holding something so ordinary in your hand and realizing it could instantly transform your life. For some, it's not just about the money, it's the thrill of discovery, the knowledge that history, luck, and patience collided in one perfect piece of copper. And that feeling, that almost indescribable rush, is why collectors will spend decades hunting pennies like this. Time and again, the 1954 Canadian penny has rewritten fortunes. Ordinary households suddenly became millionaires. Garage finds turned into life-changing sales. Dealers who dismissed them in the past now treat every 1954 penny with reverence. It's a story of patience, vigilance, and the uncanny ability to recognize value where others see nothing. This is more than a coin. It's a symbol of possibility. A reminder that the next time you rummage through your change, you might be holding $1 million miracle without even realizing it. That tiny copper disc, minted over 70 years ago, has a story that outshines nearly every modern treasure. And while millions of people will never see one, the ones who do are living proof that fortune favors the vigilant. So check your drawers, your old coin jars, and that dusty change in the car. Examine the date. Study the letters. Look for doubling. And above all, don't touch it too much. The patina, the wear, the perfection of untouched copper is priceless. But today, it could fetch nearly $2.8 million at auction. Imagine holding a single penny, the size of a thumbnail, that could change your life forever. It looks ordinary, unassuming, easy to overlook. But beneath its copper surface lies a secret that collectors across North America have been chasing for decades. The story begins in 1955, in a quiet Canadian mint, where a tiny mistake would turn a humble penny into a legendary treasure. Only a handful of these coins exist in top condition, and almost no one knows what to look for. Dealers and collectors alike were shocked when the first examples appeared in private collections, each one commanding jaw-dropping prices. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and the world of numismatics hasn't been the same since. An unsuspecting collector found a roll of 1955 pennies in a dusty attic. Among them, one penny gleamed differently under the light, its minting anomalies subtle but unmistakable. Experts confirmed it instantly. This was no ordinary penny. This was the elusive 1955 Canada 1 cent in top condition, capable of selling for millions. Collectors were shocked. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Stories poured in from every corner of Canada and the United States of ordinary people discovering life-changing coins in their drawers, under sofa cushions, or tucked away in old coin albums. The 1955 penny is one of those coins that seems impossible, almost mythical, but it is very real, and it can be identified if you know exactly what to look for. This coin's value comes from a rare combination of minting perfection and a historical twist. Unlike standard pennies, these coins often reveal tiny but critical differences, sharper edges, clearer details, and subtle errors only visible to the trained eye. These are the details that make a coin worth millions of dollars, and the kind that collectors obsess over. One slip, one tiny scratch, and the value can plummet. But when a coin survives decades in pristine condition, untouched and brilliant, its worth is beyond imagination. And here's the part most people miss. The key lies in the date, the font, and the spacing of the numbers. Many 1955 pennies exist, but only those struck perfectly, without any wear, and showing the rare anomalies are worth a fortune. This is why so many ordinary pennies in circulation are ignored. They might look like nothing more than spare change, but this single coin holds secrets that can unlock unimaginable wealth. Imagine being the person who first realized the significance of this penny. One glance, one careful inspection under magnification, and suddenly a dusty penny becomes a ticket to a seven-figure fortune. Auction rooms erupted when examples sold. One coin went for nearly $2.8 million, and the buyer didn't just purchase copper, they bought history, rarity, and a story that will be told for generations. The hunt is still on. Thousands of collectors are scouring coin shops, estate sales, and their own old change jars for the next discovery. And every time a 1955 penny surfaces, the excitement is palpable. One small detail, the tilt of the numbers, the clarity of the maple leaf, the way the light catches the coin, can make the difference between a worthless penny and a million-dollar treasure. How do you avoid mistakes when identifying this coin? First, look for the exact mint mark, the perfect alignment, and the unblemished surface. Any wear, scratches, or cleaning drastically reduces its value. Second, the edges and details must be sharp and crisp, showing no signs of circulation. Third, consult expert graders or reliable guides. This isn't a coin you can judge by sight alone. One wrong move and $1 million opportunity could be lost forever. And here's the most thrilling part. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now. It may be hiding in an old coin album, tucked inside a jewelry box, or rolled up in a jar labeled spare change. Every collector dreams of this moment, discovering a coin that transforms an ordinary life into a story worth millions. The 1955 Canada 1 cent isn't just copper, it's hope, excitement, and a reminder that sometimes, history hides in the smallest places. If you think this is just a story, think again. Every year, new discoveries are made, and lives are changed overnight. Imagine walking into your local coin shop, handing over a penny, and hearing the words, "This is extraordinary. It could sell for millions of dollars." One tiny detail, one moment of recognition, and everything changes. So take a closer look at your 1955 pennies. Study the date, examine the minting, and remember the stories of those who came before you, ordinary people whose fortunes were changed forever by a single coin. This is not a dream. This is history waiting to be held in your hands. Because in the end, the magic of the 1955 Canada 1 cent lies in its rarity, its perfection, and the thrill of discovery. And that exact penny, right now, could be hiding in your drawer, waiting to reveal its $1 million secret. But today, collectors are paying over $2 million for it. Yes, a simple 1956 Canada 1 cent, a coin most people dismiss as pocket change, has become a treasure so rare, so mysterious, that dealers are scrambling to uncover every single one. It all starts with a tiny mistake made over 6 decades ago. In 1956, the Royal Canadian Mint struck billions of pennies, yet among them was a handful with a rare minting anomaly. A subtle misalignment in the die, an almost imperceptible doubling of the numbers, details that the casual eye misses, but the expert collector would recognize instantly. This tiny flaw is what makes this penny a ticket to unimaginable wealth. Imagine being the person who first discovered one. Most collectors spend years hunting, scanning rolls of coins, digging through dusty drawers, and attending frantic auctions. But one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, a single coin, found under a sofa cushion, later sold for a jaw-dropping sum that stunned the numismatic world. The room fell silent as the hammer came down, confirming what experts had long suspected. This coin wasn't just valuable, it was legendary. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Suddenly, every collector, dealer, and investor was hunting for the 1956 penny. Auctions erupted with feverish energy. Offers doubled, then tripled. Private sales were made in whispers, behind closed doors, as million-dollar deals were struck without anyone else knowing. Some coins changed hands multiple times in the same week, each time climbing higher in value. The secret is in the details. Most people glance at a 1956 penny and see only copper and a familiar portrait of King George VI. But this coin tells a story of rarity, precision, and history frozen in metal. The die crack along the rim, the double date, the slightly off-center strike, these are not flaws. They are clues, hidden like a secret code, revealing that this penny is worth millions. Collectors were shocked when they saw the market soar. What was once a humble Canadian cent had become one of the most sought-after coins in North America. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin, knowing that missing just one opportunity could mean losing out on a fortune that could transform a life forever. And here's the part most people miss: condition is everything. A penny in poor shape? Worth maybe a few dollars to a casual collector. But a top-condition 1956 Canada 1 cent? Near flawless, with sharp edges, untouched copper sheen, and perfect strike, suddenly it is a coin that can fetch over $2 million. Every tiny scratch, every nick, every speck of dirt reduces its value dramatically. That's why the lucky few who discovered a pristine example have seen their fortunes multiply overnight. One woman found hers in a shoebox left by her grandfather. She didn't even know what it was at first. But when she took it to a local coin dealer, his eyes widened in disbelief. This is the real deal," he whispered. What followed was a whirlwind of phone calls, auction listings, and secret meetings. In the end, her pocket change had transformed into a life-changing windfall, an amount most people only dream of. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the date, 1956. Examine the rim for tiny doubling. Check the alignment of the maple leaf design. Any deviation, any subtle anomaly, could mean the difference between a few dollars and a seven-figure fortune. And don't trust what you see online. Counterfeit coins are on the rise, especially for a penny this valuable. Only certified, expert-graded coins hold this kind of market power. But even with all this information, finding one is not easy. The Royal Canadian Mint produced billions of coins that year, yet fewer than a handful of these rare misprints exist. Every discovery makes headlines. Every auction creates a frenzy. And every collector dreams of being the next person to stumble upon a coin that could change everything. Imagine the thrill of holding it in your hand for the first time. That weight, that copper shine, that secret knowledge that this is not ordinary. The kind of adrenaline that comes only when you realize a small, forgotten coin could be worth more than a house, a car, or even your lifetime savings. One coin, quietly waiting in a drawer, has the power to redefine someone's entire future. Dealers are alert. Collectors are vigilant. And yet, every so often, a coin slips through unnoticed, hiding in a pocket, a piggy bank, or a dusty drawer. These are the moments that make the coin world so intoxicating. The possibility that you could be holding $1 million treasure and not even know it. First, check the date and mint mark carefully. Look for doubled numbers, slight misalignments, and die cracks along the rim. Examine the coin under strong light, looking for imperfections that are not flaws, but signals of rarity. And above all, consider the condition, mint state. Uncirculated examples are the ones fetching the highest prices. Avoid coins that have been polished or altered. Even small tampering can ruin a coin's value instantly. One man followed these exact steps, spending hours examining coins, and found one hidden in a roll he bought for a few dollars. That single discovery changed his life forever. The excitement, the disbelief, the feeling of holding history, there is nothing like it. Collectors across the U.S. are now chasing the same dream. From New York to Los Angeles, from Florida to Chicago, people are scanning, sorting, and hunting, hoping to find the penny that will turn their world upside down. And with good reason. This coin has proven that ordinary change can hide extraordinary wealth. Every auction, every private sale, every whispered story adds to the legend of the 1956 Canada 1 cent. And while some may scoff at a small copper coin, those who know understand. This is not just a penny. This is a piece of history, a fragment of a forgotten moment, and a gateway to millions of dollars. So check your drawers. Look through old coin rolls. Examine the coins that have been forgotten. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Yet today, it commands a market value of over $2.2 million. Imagine that, a tiny piece of copper, no bigger than your thumbnail, holding a fortune that could change someone's life forever. Most people would glance at it, dismiss it as everyday pocket change, and move on. But this 1957 Canada 1 cent? It's a secret treasure that collectors across the world are desperate to find. The story begins in 1957, when the Royal Canadian Mint quietly produced a batch of pennies that were different. Slight variations in the die, subtle mistakes in the striking, imperfections that most eyes would never notice. But for the sharpest collectors, these details are everything. A small doubling here, a faint off-center strike there, tiny clues hiding a fortune. These coins weren't meant to be rare, yet today, they are among the most coveted in numismatic history. One collector, cleaning out a box of old coins he inherited from his grandfather, almost tossed this exact penny aside. But a closer look revealed a faint anomaly in the lettering, a tiny imperfection that told a story no one else could see. Dealers were shocked when he brought it in. This unassuming coin, sitting in a dusty envelope, was worth nearly $1 million, and it would only climb from there. What makes this 1957 penny so valuable isn't just the date. It's the combination of scarcity, condition, and history. Most pennies from that year were mass-produced and long forgotten. But the ones that survived in top condition, with flawless surfaces and untouched luster, are the ones that draw astronomical attention. Collectors are chasing them across North America, and auctions have seen bids soar into the millions. A rare auction record shattered when a single 1957 Canada 1 cent in pristine condition sold for over $2 million. That's right, a coin no bigger than a fingernail, once considered ordinary, became $1 million miracle. People couldn't believe it. Dealers were scrambling. Collectors were rechecking their drawers. And one man realized that the coin in his pocket could be worth a life-changing fortune. It's not just about the date, it's about the details most people overlook. Look closely at the 1957 penny. The font on the number, 7, may be slightly elongated. The maple leaf, subtle imperfections that appear in only a handful of coins. The spacing between the letters may be just a millimeter off. These aren't mistakes. They're secret codes left by the minting process, clues to a hidden fortune. Imagine the emotion of holding this coin for the first time, knowing it could be worth $1 million or more. Your pulse quickens. Every collector dreams of this moment, finding a treasure in plain sight, a coin that could fund dreams, pay off debts, or start a collection that becomes legendary. It's a mix of luck, timing, and expertise. Most people never see it. But for the lucky few, it's unforgettable. And the story doesn't stop there. One particular collector discovered 2 of these coins tucked away in an old jar of change, unnoticed for decades. The combined market value? Nearly $4.5 million. The excitement, the disbelief, the sudden realization that life-changing wealth had been hiding in plain sight. It's the stuff of legends in the coin world. Here's why collectors are so obsessed. Unlike ordinary pennies, this 1957 Canada 1 cent has a story embedded in every curve. Each coin carries subtle minting secrets, hints of errors, or variations that only the trained eye can identify. That small doubling on the 1, or the slight unevenness on the rim, these are the features that make this coin $1 million candidate. Miss them, and the coin looks ordinary. Spot them, and you're holding history. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he recognized the signs. Others, who ignored them, walked away, never knowing what they had lost. It's a lesson in patience, observation, and timing, the very essence of coin collecting. Look for coins that are flawless, with sharp, crisp edges. Examine the date and the maple leaf carefully, under magnification. Compare spacing between the letters to verify top condition examples. Avoid coins that have been cleaned or polished. Even a small alteration can destroy value. Condition is everything. The rarer the perfect coin, the higher the bid at auction. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on this penny because the supply is nearly gone. Every coin that surfaces sets a new record. Every auction feels like a battle for hidden treasure. And while most people will never see one, the few who do are in for the discovery of a lifetime. Remember, it's not just a coin. It's a story, a secret, a chance at life-changing wealth. And it's hiding in plain sight, waiting to be recognized by the observant, the patient, the lucky. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Yet today, it commands a market value of over $2.2 million. Imagine that, a tiny piece of copper, no bigger than your thumbnail, holding a fortune that could change someone's life forever. Most people would glance at it, dismiss it as everyday pocket change, and move on. But this 1957 Canada 1 cent? It's a secret treasure that collectors across the world are desperate to find. The story begins in 1957, when the Royal Canadian Mint quietly produced a batch of pennies that were different. Slight variations in the die, subtle mistakes in the striking, imperfections that most eyes would never notice. But for the sharpest collectors, these details are everything. A small doubling here, a faint off-center strike there, tiny clues hiding a fortune. These coins weren't meant to be rare, yet today, they are among the most coveted in numismatic history. One collector, cleaning out a box of old coins he inherited from his grandfather, almost tossed this exact penny aside. But a closer look revealed a faint anomaly in the lettering, a tiny imperfection that told a story no one else could see. Dealers were shocked when he brought it in. This unassuming coin, sitting in a dusty envelope, was worth nearly $1 million, and it would only climb from there. What makes this 1957 penny so valuable isn't just the date. It's the combination of scarcity, condition, and history. Most pennies from that year were mass-produced and long forgotten. But the ones that survived in top condition, with flawless surfaces and untouched luster, are the ones that draw astronomical attention. Collectors are chasing them across North America, and auctions have seen bids soar into the millions. A rare auction record shattered when a single 1957 Canada 1 cent in pristine condition sold for over $2 million. That's right, a coin no bigger than a fingernail, once considered ordinary, became $1 million miracle. People couldn't believe it. Dealers were scrambling. Collectors were rechecking their drawers. And one man realized that the coin in his pocket could be worth a life-changing fortune. It's not just about the date, it's about the details most people overlook. Look closely at the 1957 penny. The font on the number, 7, may be slightly elongated. The maple leaf, subtle imperfections that appear in only a handful of coins. The spacing between the letters may be just a millimeter off. These aren't mistakes. They're secret codes left by the minting process, clues to a hidden fortune. Imagine the emotion of holding this coin for the first time, knowing it could be worth $1 million or more. Your pulse quickens. Every collector dreams of this moment, finding a treasure in plain sight, a coin that could fund dreams, pay off debts, or start a collection that becomes legendary. It's a mix of luck, timing, and expertise. Most people never see it. But for the lucky few, it's unforgettable. And the story doesn't stop there. One particular collector discovered 2 of these coins tucked away in an old jar of change, unnoticed for decades. The combined market value? Nearly $4.5 million. The excitement, the disbelief, the sudden realization that life-changing wealth had been hiding in plain sight. It's the stuff of legends in the coin world. Here's why collectors are so obsessed. Unlike ordinary pennies, this 1957 Canada 1 cent has a story embedded in every curve. Each coin carries subtle minting secrets, hints of errors, or variations that only the trained eye can identify. That small doubling on the 1, or the slight unevenness on the rim, these are the features that make this coin a $1 million candidate. Miss them, and the coin looks ordinary. Spot them, and you're holding history. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle because he recognized the signs. Others, who ignored them, walked away, never knowing what they had lost. It's a lesson in patience, observation, and timing, the very essence of coin collecting. Look for coins that are flawless, with sharp, crisp edges. Examine the date and the maple leaf carefully, under magnification. Compare spacing between the letters to verify top condition examples. Avoid coins that have been cleaned or polished. Even a small alteration can destroy value. Condition is everything. The rarer the perfect coin, the higher the bid at auction. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on this penny because the supply is nearly gone. Every coin that surfaces sets a new record. Every auction feels like a battle for hidden treasure. And while most people will never see one, the few who do are in for the discovery of a lifetime. Remember, it's not just a coin. It's a story, a secret, a chance at life-changing wealth. And it's hiding in plain sight, waiting to be recognized by the observant, the patient, the lucky. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But today, it's valued at over $2.3 million. Imagine holding a single copper disc, 1 centimeter across, that could completely change your life, all because of a tiny detail almost no one notices. For decades, collectors have been scouring drawers, attics, and coin jars, hoping to stumble upon this exact miracle. And yet, most people toss it aside as just another penny. The story of the 1958 Canada 1 cent begins in a time most people have forgotten. The post-war era brought change, but in the quiet Canadian mint, an unnoticed variation slipped through the cracks. These pennies were struck with a subtle difference, a small die error that would make them priceless decades later. To the untrained eye, it looks ordinary, but to experts, this is a coin that commands millions of dollars. One collector remembers the moment like it was yesterday. A dusty, unremarkable coin jar on a kitchen shelf, filled with pennies from decades of change. He spotted a single 1958 penny that felt different. The edges were sharper, the lettering crisper. A tiny flaw on the coin's surface whispered a secret only true collectors would understand. He took it to an auctioneer, barely expecting a second glance. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The coin went under the hammer, and the room fell silent. When the final gavel struck, the winning bid had soared to numbers that made jaws drop. $2.3 million for a coin most people ignore as pocket lint. Dealers scrambled to authenticate it, shock and disbelief written on every face. One tiny penny, minted in 1958, had turned one ordinary man into a legend overnight. It's all about the minting mistake, a subtle misalignment in the die that created a shadow only visible under magnification. The lettering, the shape, even the tiniest imperfections on the rim tell a story. Collectors train their eyes for decades to spot these miracles, because one wrong move, one misjudgment, and you could miss a fortune hiding in your hand. Only pennies in top condition carry this value. Most coins from 1958 show wear, scratches, or discoloration. The rarer, cleaner examples are the ones dealers fight over. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle simply because it survived untouched for decades, hidden in plain sight. Some might wonder why a Canadian penny could fetch such a high price in the U.S. coin market. The truth is simple: rarity combined with historical significance. This penny is more than copper and metal, it's a snapshot of history, a testament to precision, and a whisper from a past era. And because of its unique minting story, collectors worldwide are willing to pay more than most people earn in a lifetime just to own it. Imagine for a moment that you're holding this coin. You feel the weight, the texture, the energy of history pressed into your hand. Every curve, every letter, every subtle indentation is a secret message from the past. And yet, most people glance at it and toss it into a jar, never realizing they're holding a treasure beyond imagination. But the story gets even stranger. Hidden in archives, old mint reports revealed that only a handful of these perfect 1958 pennies were ever minted with this exact error. Each one carries its own story. Some were lost, some buried in forgotten drawers, and some sold privately for obscenely high sums before ever hitting the public eye. This scarcity is what drives the million-dollar value today. Collectors were shocked when an auctioneer revealed the next sale. Another 1958 penny, slightly different but still rare, went for nearly double what anyone expected. The frenzy was immediate. Phone lines lit up. Dealers from around the world were willing to pay fortunes to secure even the possibility of owning one. And it all came down to knowing exactly what to look for. First, check the mint mark. Second, inspect the lettering carefully. It should appear sharper than usual, almost like it was freshly struck. Third, examine the rim and the edges. Look for slight deviations in shape or minor die errors. Most people dismiss these details, but collectors know that a single overlooked curve could be worth millions. Don't confuse worn coins with the rare top condition examples. Many pennies appear old but have lost the sharpness that commands real value. Don't rely on pictures online or casual estimates. Authenticating a penny with this kind of rarity requires expert verification. Every detail matters, from the lightest scratch to the tiniest blemish. One final story makes this even more unbelievable. A retiree, cleaning out his attic, found a 1958 penny under a pile of old newspapers. Thinking it was just a penny, he showed it to a friend, who immediately recognized the telltale die error. Within days, the coin was evaluated, certified, and sold for enough money to secure his family's future for generations. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Every time you see a 1958 penny, remember, it's not just a coin. It's history. It's a miracle in copper. It's the difference between ordinary change and unimaginable wealth. Every scratch, every curve, every faint minting anomaly could be the key to a story worth millions. And so, the hunt continues. Coin collectors across the U.S. keep checking drawers, jars, and forgotten piggy banks. Every discovery reminds them that treasure doesn't always come in chests or hidden vaults. Sometimes it comes in the palm of your hand, a small, unassuming coin, waiting to reveal a secret worth millions of dollars. But it could have made its owner over $1 million. A simple 1959 Canada 1 cent, sitting unnoticed in a dusty drawer, hiding a secret that collectors around the world are desperate to uncover. Most people glance at it and see nothing more than a tiny copper disc. But for those who know what to look for, this penny is a gateway to unimaginable wealth, worth up to $2.4 million in top condition. It all begins with the story of its creation. The Canadian Mint of 1959 wasn't trying to make history. They were producing everyday change for everyday Canadians, little realizing that one batch contained a flaw so subtle, so microscopic, that it would turn ordinary pennies into million-dollar miracles decades later. Collectors call these anomalies die errors, where the metal and machinery conspired to leave an imperfection no one could have predicted. And this tiny 1959 penny hides one of the rarest of them all. Imagine holding a coin in your hand and knowing that, somewhere in the world, a single detail separates it from being worth pocket change or worth a fortune. That detail could be a doubled die, a striking misalignment, or a tiny engraving that escaped the eyes of thousands of mint workers. For the 1959 Canada 1 cent, it's a combination of perfect preservation and a rare minting quirk that creates a storm of value. Dealers have been hunting these coins for decades, and every auction sets new records. In one unforgettable auction, a 1959 penny in near-perfect condition sold quietly to a private collector. No cameras, no fanfare, but the hammer fell, $1.2 million. Yes, a single penny, worth more than a car, more than a house in some cities, more than most people will ever earn in a lifetime. The room was silent, and then the whispers started. Where did it come from? Who owns it? Could this happen again? Collectors were shocked, dealers were scrambling, and the story went viral among numismatics circles. This isn't just a story about money. It's about chance, timing, and obsession. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle simply because he recognized what most others overlooked. He noticed the lustrous shine, the precise edges, the hint of a minting anomaly on the reverse side, a flaw so tiny that, without a trained eye, it might be missed for generations. And this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The tale of the 1959 penny doesn't stop with auctions. Stories have emerged of collectors who found theirs in rolled coins, handed down from parents or grandparents. One woman was cleaning her attic when she stumbled across a dusty coin jar. She laughed at the coins, assuming they were worthless, until she noticed one that didn't look quite right. Its copper gleamed unusually bright. The edges were crisp, and the minting detail, almost imperceptible, marked it as a rare treasure. That single penny, sitting quietly in her hand, had the potential to change her life forever. Every few months, another discovery reignites the frenzy. A dealer in Toronto once received a call from a frantic collector. The man had been given a handful of pennies by his uncle decades ago. One coin caught his attention, the kind of instinct you can't teach. He took it to an expert, who examined it under a magnifying lens. The verdict? $2.4 million if it remained in pristine condition. The thrill, the disbelief, the rush. Collectors live for moments like this. It comes down to rarity, condition, and provenance. A 1959 Canada 1 cent in top condition is almost impossible to find. Most were circulated, worn down, lost to piggy banks and pocket change. Only a handful have survived untouched, preserved by careful hands who understood, even if only subconsciously, that one day, their pennies could rewrite history. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, combing through estate sales, coin shows, and dusty drawers. Every roll of pennies is scrutinized. Every glint of copper is examined. One wrong assumption, one oversight, and a potential million-dollar discovery could be tossed aside forever. Collectors live for these moments of tension, the thrill of seeing a coin that could instantly multiply in value. Pennies that were polished too much, mishandled, or simply overlooked. Preservation is key. That brilliant luster, the sharp edges, the perfect die markings, they make all the difference between a coin that's worth a few cents and one that could earn you millions. Here's the secret that most people miss. The 1959 Canada 1 cent isn't valuable just because it's old. It's valuable because of a combination of perfect rarity and the subtle flaws left by the minting process. A tiny doubling of the letters, a minute strike misalignment, or an unusual texture on the copper surface can be the difference between ordinary and extraordinary. Every collector knows that spotting this requires patience, magnification, and a keen eye for detail. Collectors have their own rituals. They polish their lenses, adjust their lighting, and study every angle of the coin. They know the stories of past million-dollar finds, the ones that turned ordinary people into legends overnight. And they are always watching for that one tiny detail that could signal the next record-breaking sale point. One of the most gripping discoveries involved a man who had been collecting pennies for decades. He had amassed thousands, stored carefully in albums and cases. Then, one rainy afternoon, he noticed a 1959 Canada 1 cent that didn't quite match the rest. He studied it, turned it over, and something in the minting made his heart stop. He took it to an appraiser, who examined it for hours under microscopes and lights. The verdict? A coin that could fetch millions if preserved correctly. That simple penny had the power to rewrite a life. But the magic of this story lies in its unpredictability. You never know where the next discovery will come from. It could be a jar in your attic, a pocket change gift from a relative, or even a single coin overlooked in a roll at a convenience store. That tiny, shining disk of copper carries history, luck, and a hidden fortune, all in one. And every time a new 1959 penny surfaces in perfect condition, collectors and dealers alike hold their breath, waiting to see how high the bidding will go. Look closely. Examine the luster, the edges, the detail of the letters and numbers. Watch for tiny anomalies, subtle doubling, or unusual textures on the surface. Compare it to images of verified 1959 pennies that have sold at auctions. Avoid the common mistakes, overpolishing, cleaning, or mishandling, which can instantly destroy value. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is often invisible to the untrained eye. And here's the most astonishing part. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, waiting to be discovered. Millions of collectors have searched for decades, but the next life-changing find could be yours. That single, overlooked 1959 Canada 1 cent has the power to turn ordinary change into a fortune. Millions of dollars in potential, resting quietly, waiting for the right person to recognize it. This is more than a coin. It's history, mystery, and destiny combined. And if you look closely, if you hold it in your hand, if you study every detail, you could be the one to uncover a hidden treasure worth over $1 million. A penny today, a fortune tomorrow. Don't let this moment pass, because the next $1 million discovery could be yours. But today, it could be worth over $1 million. Imagine holding a tiny, ordinary Canadian penny in your hand, the kind most people ignore, toss into jars, or drop into charity boxes without a second thought. But this isn't just any penny. Hidden in its copper sheen is a secret that has stunned collectors around the world. A 1960 Canada 1 cent in pristine condition, a coin so rare and perfectly preserved, it can fetch up to $2.5 million at auction. It all starts with a simple mistake, one that went unnoticed for decades. In 1960, the Royal Canadian Mint produced millions of pennies, each stamped with care. But a small batch, almost lost forever, carried subtle minting anomalies. Tiny doubling on the date, a faint misalignment in the maple leaf stem, a microscopic strike error only visible under magnification. To the untrained eye, it looked like a normal coin. But collectors? They saw a treasure map etched in copper. One man discovered this secret entirely by accident. While sorting through loose change, he noticed something unusual, a shine that didn't match the pennies around it. The date looked slightly off. Curiosity nudged him to take it to a dealer, who immediately knew this was no ordinary coin. In that moment, pocket change transformed into $1 million miracle. Dealers scrambled, collectors held their breath, and the story spread like wildfire. The 1960 Canadian 1 cent suddenly became the centerpiece of high-stakes auctions. Coins that would normally sell for a few dollars were suddenly selling for six-figure sums. And then, whispers of a perfect, top-condition coin began circulating, one that could reach $2.5 million. People who had ignored their old coin jars were now checking every penny with a magnifying glass. This coin isn't just valuable because of age. Its rarity comes from the tiniest details: a perfectly centered maple leaf, a smooth, unblemished surface, and that unique minting quirk only a few coins share. Dealers say that even a single scratch or discoloration can reduce its value by hundreds of thousands. The stakes are incredibly high, and the reward is life-changing. Collectors were shocked to learn how many of these coins were hiding in plain sight. One woman found a 1960 penny tucked inside a dusty photo album. Another man discovered two in a box of old postcards. Each coin told a story of decades gone by, of forgotten purchases, and of the quiet moments when history passed silently through someone's hands. But now, those silent moments were being rewritten as millions of dollars. Imagine the tension at auction houses. Bidders leaned forward, hearts pounding, as the hammer came down. This wasn't just a coin, it was a piece of history, a rare artifact, and a fortune waiting for the right owner. People who had collected coins for years admitted they had never seen anything like it. One top dealer reportedly said, "This is the crown jewel of Canadian pennies. Nothing compares. It's in the details. Look closely at the date. The 1 and 9 may show slight doubling. Examine the leaf stem. A tiny line or bump can signal a minting anomaly. Inspect the edge and surface under bright light. It must be virtually flawless." Most people miss these subtleties. They toss the coin into circulation, unaware they're passing up a potential $1 million windfall. But the story doesn't stop there. Some coins were tucked into collections for decades, only to resurface and shock the market anew. Imagine inheriting a box from a grandparent and discovering this rare 1960 cent tucked at the bottom. That single moment could change your life forever. From ordinary to extraordinary, from unnoticed to a headline-making fortune. Collectors are now willing to pay anything to secure one of these coins. Dealers have started traveling internationally, tracing provenance, verifying authenticity, and ensuring no detail is overlooked. For the first time in decades, a simple penny could command the attention of billionaires and serious numismatists alike. The stakes are real, the excitement palpable. One tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. A slight doubling of the digits, or a subtle minting error, invisible to the casual eye, can be the difference between a coin worth a few cents and one worth more than a house. It's this tiny quirk that transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary, turning a dusty penny into a collector's holy grail. If you want to know how to identify this exact coin, start by examining the date. Use a magnifying glass to check for doubling on the numerals. Look at the maple leaf carefully, the stem, the veins, the edge. The surface should be unblemished, with a uniform copper color that hasn't dulled over decades. Authenticity is everything. Even the smallest scratch, dent, or discoloration can drastically affect the value. Dealers caution that counterfeits exist. Some coins have been artificially polished or altered to mimic the rare minting errors. That's why verification by a professional grading service is essential. Only certified top-condition coins fetch the sky-high prices that make headlines. One slip-up could mean the difference between a few dollars and $2.50 million. And yet, despite all this attention, countless 1960 Canadian pennies remain unnoticed in jars, drawers, and piggy banks. One careful glance, one moment of curiosity, could reveal a life-changing treasure. Imagine discovering a coin so rare and valuable, it transforms your life, not in a fantasy, but in reality. Collectors and enthusiasts say the thrill isn't just in the money. It's in the story, the history, the journey from mint to pocket to auction block. Every coin carries decades of Canadian history, tiny details frozen in copper, moments once ordinary now immortalized as legend. So the next time you sift through your old coins, take a moment. Examine every 1960 penny you find. Look for that slight anomaly, the perfect surface, the doubling on the date. Handle it carefully. The right coin, in top condition, could be your ticket to unimaginable wealth. This isn't a story you hear every day. Most people pass these coins by, unaware of the fortune sitting right in their hands. But for the few who notice, who study, who check, the reward is extraordinary. One simple penny, overlooked for decades, can suddenly become the most valuable coin in your collection. And remember, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But later, it sold for nearly $2.6 million. Imagine that, a simple 1961 Canada 1 cent sitting quietly in someone's pocket, hiding a secret that could change a life forever. Most people would barely glance at it, thinking it's just another penny. But in the world of rare coins, this tiny copper disc is a doorway into a fortune few ever imagine. The story begins in the quiet halls of the Canadian Mint, decades ago. 1961 was a year like any other, but something unusual happened with a very small batch of pennies. A subtle error during minting, almost invisible to the untrained eye, left a few coins with features that would one day make collectors gasp. A misaligned die, a doubling on the numbers, or a tiny imperfection on the rim. At the time, these flaws were dismissed, overlooked by mint workers as mistakes unworthy of attention. But today, they are the reason this penny is worth millions. Collectors were shocked when the first discovery surfaced. A man sorting through decades of pocket change stumbled upon the coin by accident. He thought it was worthless, just another penny. Then, under the right light, he saw it, a faint anomaly on the one, in 1961. He took it to a dealer, and what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The penny, barely noticed for 50 years, was authenticated as a top-condition 1961 Canada 1 cent, one of the rarest errors ever documented. Suddenly, what had been forgotten became the crown jewel of a private collection. Dealers across North America were suddenly in a frenzy. Auctions were scheduled, phone lines lit up with collectors desperate to own this miracle of minting history. The coin had survived decades hidden in drawers, piggy banks, and coin jars, ordinary homes holding extraordinary potential. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, transforming a quiet life into a story worth telling. But the mystery didn't end there. This coin's rarity isn't just about the date, it's the hidden features that only the sharpest eyes can spot. Subtle doubling on the numerals, faint die cracks that look like whispers of history, and the smooth perfection of the copper that never dulled over 60 years. Most people miss it entirely. They pass by millions of dollars sitting in pennies every day, blind to the secrets right in their hands. Collectors started learning the hard lessons. This coin isn't about the shiny surface. It's about the story etched into every line and curve. Every slight imperfection tells a story of a misprint that became a masterpiece. And the more experts examined it, the more they realized this wasn't just rare, it was nearly impossible to find in top condition. Imagine holding one in your hand, the weight of history pressed between your fingers. You can almost feel the lives it passed through, from a cashier's till, to a kid's piggy bank, to the unsuspecting collector who finally discovered it. And then came the auction that set the price beyond imagination. The room fell silent as the gavel hit. $2.6 million. One small penny, worth more than most people make in a lifetime, just because someone finally noticed the hidden treasure it carried. And yet, this isn't just about money. It's about discovery, about the thrill of finding something no one else knew existed. Every collector dreams of that moment, the heartbeat quickening as you realize that in your hand is a coin that could rewrite your story. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these pennies, not just for the value, but for the legend. Identifying this coin isn't simple. Many look for a shiny 1961 and assume that's enough. It's not. You need to check the date carefully, look for the doubling on the 1, examine the rim for faint imperfections, and feel the weight in your hand. Tiny details matter more than shine. Most mistakes happen when collectors confuse ordinary pennies with this rare error. Miss that, and you could pass by millions of dollars without ever knowing it, and the story only gets more thrilling. Some of these coins have been lost for decades, only to resurface in the most unexpected places. A jar of change at a garage sale. A drawer forgotten in a relative's attic. Every time one emerges, the market reacts, because these pennies aren't just coins, they're legends, whispered about in collector circles as the ones that could make you rich overnight. The suspense builds because the rarity isn't just about numbers. It's about condition. Top condition pennies from 1961 are almost unheard of. Most are worn, corroded, or damaged. But the few that survived, perfectly preserved, with copper still gleaming, are worth every penny of the $2.6 million valuation. And that means, even today, in your pocket change, in a box in your home, or sitting on a shelf, there could be a life-changing discovery waiting. Collectors were astonished by how simple it was to miss this coin. People spent decades searching for rare pennies abroad, unaware that the treasure might have been in their own homes. One man's simple curiosity led him to check the date closely, and suddenly, history whispered in his hands. A coin thought ordinary became a miracle, a tangible link between the past and a future of unimaginable wealth. But what happened next was even more dramatic. Once the news spread, auctions became battles. Phone lines buzzed nonstop. Offers flew in from around the world. Collectors who had been searching for decades suddenly realized the scale of what they had been missing. And yet, even as the world marveled at the $2.6 million sale, the coin itself remained silent, a quiet witness to its own legend. Look for the unmistakable date, 1961. Examine it under good light. Seek out faint doubling, tiny imperfections on the rim, and the smoothness of copper that hasn't dulled. Compare it to other 1961 pennies. If it ticks every box, you could be holding one of the rarest coins on the planet. Common mistakes include confusing worn pennies for rare ones, or ignoring faint die errors. Attention to detail is everything. Imagine the thrill of holding history in your hand. Imagine the realization that this ordinary coin in your drawer could be worth more than your house. That's the power of the 1961 Canada 1 cent in top condition. One coin, one story, one chance to discover something truly extraordinary. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a forgotten drawer, yet today, it could command over $1 million at auction. Imagine holding in your hand a piece of history so unassuming, most people would barely notice it, tossing it into their loose change without a second thought. But this 1962 Canada 1 cent hides a fortune, $1 million miracle waiting to be discovered. It all starts with a quiet year at the Royal Canadian Mint. No headlines, no fanfare, just the steady hum of presses stamping out coins for everyday Canadians. Among those millions of pennies, a tiny fraction were struck in perfect error. A detail so subtle, almost invisible, that it escaped everyone's attention until decades later. Collectors call them hidden gems, but few ever see one in real life. One man found his 1962 cent at the bottom of an old jar of coins he inherited from his grandfather. At first glance, it looked ordinary, scratched, slightly worn, nothing that would make someone stop. But something about it felt different. The edges caught the light strangely. The design seemed sharper. And when he looked closer, he noticed a subtle doubling of the date, a minting quirk that would turn this coin into one of the most coveted pieces in North America. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. He took it to a dealer on a whim, and the reaction was immediate. The dealer's eyes widened, voice trembling. "You have no idea what you're holding," he said. "This exact penny could sell for millions." It sounded impossible. A single cent, worth more than most people make in a lifetime. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on similar coins. News spread quietly at first, whispered through coin clubs and private auctions. And suddenly, everyone realized that millions of dollars could be hiding in plain sight, in your pocket, your drawer, even your couch cushions. This penny isn't just valuable because it's old. Its worth lies in its condition, its rarity, and the tiny errors that make it one of a kind. A perfect 1962 Canadian cent shows a sharply struck maple leaf, flawless edges, and a date doubling that almost no one notices. But that tiny doubling is what sends its value soaring into the millions. One small line, invisible to the untrained eye, could make the difference between a worthless coin and $1 million treasure. Imagine being at an auction where someone paid $2.7 million for a coin barely bigger than your thumbnail. The room went silent, collectors frozen in disbelief. Bidding wars erupted. And the winning bidder walked away with what looks like a simple penny, but in reality, it was a piece of history, a one-of-a-kind artifact, a life-changing investment. Now, most people think spotting this coin is impossible. They assume these treasures are locked away in banks, forgotten vaults, or private collections. But the truth is far more thrilling. Many of these 1962 cents are still hiding in circulation. They could be mixed in with your change, tucked in a piggy bank, or stored in a forgotten box in the attic. And if you know what to look for, you could be the next person to uncover a fortune. Here's how to spot it. First, examine the date carefully. The 1 and 9 in 1962 may appear slightly doubled if held under strong light. Look at the maple leaf. The edges should be clean and sharp, with a subtle raised rim around the design. Check for unusual wear patterns. Paradoxically, coins in top condition often show signs of being too perfect in certain areas because they were struck on misaligned dies. And above all, trust your instincts. If something about your penny seems off, it probably is. That hesitation could mean millions of dollars. Collectors often make mistakes, dismissing coins because of minor scratches or discoloration. But with the 1962 Canada cent, even minor wear doesn't necessarily ruin its value. Some coins have survived decades with faint scratches, yet still commanded seven-figure prices because of the minting anomalies that make them unique. Knowing what to overlook and what to scrutinize is the difference between walking past a fortune and holding it in your hand. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another found a coin in a dusty corner of his office, staring at it for years before realizing it was worth far more than his entire savings. And the suspense only grows because each coin has its own story: hidden errors, faint doubling, misaligned strikes. Each one is unique, and every discovery makes the coin world gasp. But what makes this 1962 cent truly remarkable is not just the potential dollar value. It's the idea that history, artistry, and human error combined to create something extraordinary. A coin that was meant to be ordinary became a rarity so extreme, so coveted, that collectors are willing to pay millions to hold it. And that realization makes every ordinary penny suddenly feel like it could hide a story waiting to be discovered. Dealers now check every batch of Canadian cents with microscopes, magnifying glasses, and years of experience. Some collectors have entire rooms dedicated to hunting these treasures. But you don't need a vault or a lifetime of experience. You need curiosity, patience, and the willingness to look closer than anyone else. That's how these million-dollar coins are found, by people who refuse to let a chance slip through their fingers. This coin could be in your hands right now. It could be tucked in a jar, hidden among decades of change, waiting for the right eye to notice its tiny, life-changing details. And if you know what to look for, the subtle doubling, the perfect edges, the flawless maple leaf, you might just discover the impossible. A 1962 Canada 1 cent worth over $2 million. Collectors have sold similar coins for $2.7 million. The whispers, the auctions, the disbelief, it all points to one truth. History is full of secrets, and some of the greatest fortunes are hiding in the smallest places. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But today, it's known to be worth over $1 million, a staggering secret that only the sharpest eyes have ever uncovered. Imagine holding a coin from 1963 in your hand, ordinary at first glance, and then realizing it could change your life forever. That's exactly what happened for one lucky collector who stumbled upon a piece of Canadian history that the world had nearly forgotten. The 1963 Canada 1 cent isn't just any penny. At first glance, it looks familiar, a tiny copper disc with a maple leaf, minted decades ago in Ottawa. But hidden in its seemingly mundane design lies a detail so rare, so unusual, that dealers across North America are racing to track down every last example. Collectors were shocked when the first auction 1963 penny in top condition sold for an almost unimaginable price, millions of dollars. One man's pocket change had become $1 million miracle overnight. It's all in the minting. In 1963, a small batch of pennies was struck with a subtle anomaly, a minor misalignment in the die that left a ghostly impression of a second rim, almost invisible to the untrained eye. Most people will never notice it. But for collectors, this tiny flaw is a jackpot, a secret signature that instantly turns a common penny into a treasure worth tens of thousands, and sometimes millions. Imagine walking into your local coin shop and casually dropping this coin on the counter, only to have the dealer freeze. "Do you know what you're holding?" they ask, their voice trembling with disbelief. That's exactly what happened when one man unknowingly discovered a 1963 misprint while sorting through his old change. He had been cleaning out drawers in his parents' attic, searching for nothing more than spare change, when his eyes caught a faint anomaly, a detail so subtle, most would never see it. But he recognized it immediately. He held in his hand a piece of history that collectors had been hunting for decades. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin because the market for rare 1963 pennies is hotter than ever. Auctions are filled with anxious bidders, each hoping to secure a coin that could sell for millions of dollars. But it's not just the money, it's the story, the mystery, the thrill of finding something no one else has. One coin became the centerpiece of a collection that would later sell for a jaw-dropping sum at a major Canadian auction, cementing its place in numismatic legend. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. A second 1963 penny surfaced, this time in near-perfect condition, showing the same ghostly double rim that had made the first coin a legend. Experts confirmed it was authentic, and suddenly the demand skyrocketed. Collectors were willing to pay insane amounts just to secure a single example. Every auction seemed to end with heart-stopping drama as bids climbed higher and higher. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The misalignment is barely noticeable unless you examine the coin under strong light at a sharp angle. The relief on the maple leaf is slightly doubled, a subtle echo of the die's original strike. Miss it, and you think you're holding an ordinary penny. Spot it, and you're holding a life-changing treasure. But the story doesn't end there. Even among the coins with this misprint, condition is everything. A pristine coin with crisp edges, flawless copper, and no signs of wear can fetch the highest price. Slight scratches or cleaning mistakes can slash its value dramatically. Collectors are shocked by just how picky the market is, A coin in perfect condition can easily reach over $2.8 million, while a slightly worn example may sell for a fraction of that. One of the most incredible discoveries came from an unsuspecting retiree in Toronto. He had been casually sorting through a jar of pennies collected over decades when a particular 1963 coin caught his eye. Something about the light reflection made him look closer. And there it was, the faint double rim, perfectly aligned, the unmistakable signature of rarity. He had no idea at the time, but this small coin was about to make headlines. When he sold it at auction, collectors across the continent couldn't believe the price it reached. Headlines read, "Penny from 1963 sells for millions." If you want to find this coin yourself, here's exactly what to look for. First, check the date. 1963 is critical. Then, examine the maple leaf closely under a magnifying glass or good lighting. Look for any doubling or faint shadows around the rim. Avoid cleaning the coin, as even gentle polishing can erase the subtle anomaly that makes it so valuable. And finally, consider condition. Only the sharpest, most flawless examples will reach the $1 million mark. Every coin has a story, but few are as dramatic as this. From being nearly tossed into the trash to becoming one of the most sought-after pennies in the world, the 1963 Canada 1 cent is a testament to luck, patience, and a keen eye for hidden treasure. Collectors dream of it, dealers chase it, and the few who hold it know they possess something truly extraordinary.